In my first mock draft of the 2024 NFL season and 2024 college football season, the Carolina Panthers do not trade out. They stand pat and pick an edge rusher to help their defense. We're going to discuss this and more coming up next.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Locked On family? Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your boy, Damian Parson. You can find and follow me on X at DP_NFL. I'm a senior draft analyst, and thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers. Got to kick the intro to Mr. LSU himself, Keith Sanchez. You can find and follow him on X at The Talent Code. Keep talking to him, baby.
What's up, Locked On family? Let's get locked in. This is Keith Sanchez, 2019 national champ with those LSU Bengal Tigers, man. And what the other side to this dynamic duo that we like to call the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. I want to start this podcast off by saying shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day. And if you can hear my voice this morning, man, go ahead and hit that like button. Don't forget to comment and make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel over at Locked On NFL Draft. And my everydayers, we having some fun this morning. Why? Because DP put out a mock draft and we get to talk about it, right? We get to criticize it a little bit. We're going to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly with DP's first mock draft of the 2025 NFL draft, but the 2024 season. So DP, before we get started, man, why don't you hit him with our title sponsor?
Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Keith, we initially were going to do some preseason, some rookie stuff or whatever, but I was like, we got to get into my mock. Like, I was like, I forgot I did a mock. We got to get into it. We got to get into it, man. So you guys, for all everydayers, if you're new here, we go through the first 10 picks, then picks 11 through 20, and then 21 through 30. So let's start at the top. With the first overall pick, the Carolina Panthers select Mykel Williams, edge rusher out of Georgia. With the second overall pick, the New England Patriots select Will Campbell, offensive tackle out of LSU. With the third pick in the draft, the Denver Broncos select Ariante Ursary, offensive tackle from Minnesota. With the fourth overall pick, the New York Giants select Carson Beck, quarterback out of Georgia. With the fifth overall pick, the Tennessee Titans select James Pierce Jr., edge rusher from Tennessee. With the sixth overall pick, the Washington Commanders select Will Johnson, cornerback out of Michigan. With the seventh overall pick, the New Orleans Saints select Kelvin Banks Jr., offensive tackle out of Texas. With the eighth overall pick, the Las Vegas Raiders select Shedeur Sanders, quarterback out of Colorado. With the ninth overall pick, the Arizona Cardinals select Mason Graham, interior defensive lineman out of Michigan. And with the 10th overall pick, the Minnesota Vikings select Deon Walker, interior defensive lineman out of Kentucky. Keith, where do you want to kick this off at?
Oh, man, there's so many spots we can kick this thing off with. We talked about the quarterbacks, right? We've had that conversation. I guess just the New Orleans Saints, right? We'll stop at 7, and it's because what we've seen from Trevor Penning hasn't been good, right? I know people are like, man, they just drafted an offensive tackle in Talise Fuaga. Well, looks like they're gonna need another one. And it's just it just doesn't look great, like at all. Like the concerns that we had with Trevor Penning coming out as far as with the pass pro part of it is just not improvement, and honestly. It looks like it's declining, DP. And that's not a good situation. So the Saints with them getting the offensive tackle, I think is a really good deal. Mason Graham at 9, DP. Now that I've gotten eyes on Mason Graham, it's going to and starting to look at the top of this class, right? They're going to have to be some real emerging players for me not to have him as a top 5 pick. I don't know how you feel about that statement.
No, I agree. You know what I mean? I think he's one of my highest graded just prospects, not even just defenders, one of my highest graded guys on my board right now altogether. And, you know, I look at it and I thought about it and I was like, well, looking at team needs and all different stuff like that, we know at least one quarterback's going top 5, probably could see 2. You know what I mean? You got the Patriots needing offensive tackle. Carolina, if they're at 1 again, they probably don't pick up Mykel Williams. They first of all, they're probably not even staying at 1. They'll be in the position the Bears were in. It was like, yeah, we could trade down if you see enough from Bryce Young. So yeah, 100%. Like he's going to push that threshold for
But
positional value and
you know
drafting for
what?
team needs.
Yeah, but now that I look at it, where would he go is the question. Like, let's say because you have
Yeah,
the Carolina Panthers, would they take a defensive tackle at one? Let's say if they don't trade out, probably
yeah,
not, right? They
yeah,
probably wouldn't because I mean they have Brown, so
yeah,
most
yeah,
likely not, right? The New England Patriots, I don't know if I want him necessarily in that scheme if they're still running, some type of mixed odd front type of situation. Wouldn't necessarily want him with the Patriots. The Denver Broncos, you almost feel like not that they have bigger fish to fry, right? Because Mason Graham is the big dog, but
yeah.
they have different fish they can fry, right? Like they have different things they could
They
do. Like
yeah, and
you're trying
they
to,
run like a odd front base, if I remember correctly. They
yeah.
run like a
And
three
I mean,
four
you just
base.
want to, if you believe in Bo Nix and you're trying to find a quarterback, then it makes sense for you to start getting
Go
offensive
tackle.
pieces. The Giants have to, right? They flat out
They got
have
no
to.
choice.
Yeah, they have no choice but to go get a quarterback. The Titans, they just drafted Tavondre Sweat, right?
Yeah,
The
and paid
Commanders,
they paid Jeffrey Simmons like a year ago.
yeah, a year ago. And then the Commanders, I mean, I think their fan base will probably be tired of them drafting defensive tackles, right? they always draft the defensive tackle. Um, Interesting game plan. But yeah, I made that statement, DP, but it's actually tough to find somewhere before 9.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that was your thought process when you did it.
Yeah, it was tough because I was like, knowing the big needs and like you said, the big fish to fry for these teams, and it's like defensive tackle didn't line up for any of them. You know what I mean? Outside of maybe the Raiders, but of course, you need a quarterback
Still need a
situation
quarterback. Yep.
because what you have there is not going to get it done for this franchise. And I felt like 9, like you're talking about a perfect spot. And I know some Cardinal fans like, man, we need another edge rusher. BJ Ojulari went down in training camp with a torn ACL, so he'll like 2025 he'll be coming back healthy a year because luckily with that injury it happened in the month of July, I think. So like way before the season. So it's like, okay, by the time you get to the regular season next year, he'll be, a year removed from surgery. He'll be like fully ready to go. You put Mason Graham on in this interior defensive line, 4-man front. He's playing that 2-eye 3 tech alongside, especially on pass rush downs, alongside Darius from that they drafted this year. You kick him down off of the strong side and into that kind of 2-eye 3, whatever you want to put him at. And now you get those two guys pushing upfield, BJ Ojulari rushing off the edge, and then they make a swing for another edge rusher, whether in this 2025 class or through free agency. That's how you help this defense take a step with young players in the back end.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And then I'm going to wrap this segment up with the conversation. The Minnesota Vikings taking Deion Walker. Good
They could
player.
be drafting higher than this. Well, JJ McCarthy wasn't slated to start, but when you see that he's out for the season, that kind of takes some steam off of this team. So they could be drafting higher than 10 if Sam Darnold was starting the whole season.
I'll tell you, I was more nervous when there were the initial reports that Jordan Addison was injured. And I was like, yeah, I'll probably just go ahead and shut training camp down, right? Like, y'all gonna lose the season before y'all even get there, right? Like, just go ahead and shut training camp down. Walkthroughs and meetings, right? Like, we just need to know where we need to be, and we'll figure out the rest of this situation. But man, with Deion Walker at 10, I would say I like it. Don't necessarily love it. I'm waiting for the because it's been a minute, DP, since the Minnesota Vikings, in my opinion, kind of had like a gangbuster at defensive tackle, right? I know they drafted Jaquel and Roy, so they have, not like kind of be another finesse type of football player. But that real space eater on first and second downs. Just to kind of get the job done. I don't know if that fits Deion Walker profile or hasn't fitted thus yet. So we'll see. But I like him for passing downs, right? And maybe it fits because you got Caleb Williams, you got Jordan Love in that division, right? So you have Jared Goff. So you have a division. We probably have to get after the quarterback. So we'll see. But DP, let's keep this thing going and flowing, man. Coming up next, we have picks 11 through 20 from DP's first 2025 NFL